Hello, I'm Kelsey Howard, and welcome to Stroke of Genius, celebrating what's good. I came up with this show after suffering a stroke 2 years ago to highlight my personal journey as I continue moving forward in life. It has already taught me that everything you suffer through will eventually turn into something you're profoundly grateful for. As I continue my journey, my speech has improved, but I need to practice talking out loud. So here we go. Today is an interview with my good friend John Duffy. He represents what this podcast is all about, celebrating people doing good in this world. John is a filmmaker, producer, a professor at UCLA, author and motivational speaker, and host of the podcast Live Courageously. Hi, John.
Hey, Kelsey, thank you for bringing me on your show. I'm looking forward to this one, man. Thank
Yes,
you.
indeed. Um, you're in Santa Monica?
That is correct. Santa Monica, California.
Okay. But you were raised in the Bronx, and from the Bronx, when you went to Hollywood, you said from the ghetto to greatness. How did that happen? And why do you say South Bronx? I don't know the Bronx.
Okay, so the Bronx is a borough. There's 5 boroughs in New York. The Bronx is one of the boroughs, and my neighborhood was the part of the Bronx that was right above Harlem. So it became one of the poorest and one of the hardest neighborhoods in America during the time I was growing up, and it became and got the name the South Bronx because it was South. There was a North Bronx that was more affluent and ethnically different. So that's why I say the South Bronx, because that's of course the South Bronx is the home of rap music, and it's the home of a lot of
Okay.
different things.
Cool. So when did you come to Hollywood?
Well, I got to Hollywood I went on many journeys that got me from what I call from the ghetto to greatness, or from the Bronx to Hollywood. I got there in '91, and it came after probably one of the hardest years of my life. My life crashed in New York, and I got a ride to Hollywood with somebody who was going. And I had $100 to my name, and I got to Hollywood, and I started my life all over again.
Wow. And I know you're big on veterans, and wanted to ask. I know the movie Left Behind, but are are have you done films that are veteran themed?
Well, how I got involved, my dad was in the U.S. Army. He fought in the Philippines, an Irish immigrant, and but he died when I was 4 years old, so I didn't have a
Oh,
lot of
sorry.
input or experience with him. But I got involved with veteran causes. I ended up line producing some training videos for the U.S. Marine Corps, and I did it in Camp Pendleton, Quantico, a bunch of other places. And through that experience, I met these amazing people that I just was so impressed by, what they were doing in service to others. And I said, well, when I come back, what can I do in Hollywood to serve veterans? And that opened up the door for me to start volunteering with a lot of veteran organizations, and kind of became, like a passion of mine to give back to if I was going to give back, that was one group I wanted to give back to.
Wow. Um, when did you? I know your mentor is Tony Robbins, and I thought the public speaking began with him, and the veterans began with him. But you say it began in connection to Hollywood.
Yeah, I was already in Hollywood as I went from acting into producing, and that's when I connected with the Marine Corps. But with Tony Robbins, it was probably the year before I had the worst year, the worst year of my life, and that was I was working in the post office for 5 years as a midnight shift mail handler in Manhattan, and he had a fire walk, and it was a weekend motivational seminar. I went and did the fire walk. We walked on
Really?
we walked on hot coals on 34th Street on a Friday night. It was insanity, man. But that weekend changed my life, because I went back to the post office and I looked around and I just said, what am I doing here? I'm going for my dreams. It's over. I retire. And that was the opening that took me on the journey that eventually got me to Hollywood.
Yeah. And if you don't mind explaining, what was the uh, worst year of your life that preempted?
Well, it was kind of, funny, because sometimes after taking the seminar, I learned so much. I changed my attitudes about so many things. I got this mindset that I could accomplish anything, that I wasn't afraid of anything. So I was empowered with this powerful mindset. And I figured, well, once I got this, everything's going to get easier in my life, because I was still struggling. And then all of a sudden, instead of getting easier that year, everything got worse. So I got hit with I quit the post office. And then I didn't get any money. I thought I was going to get all kinds of money by doing this or that. All of it failed. So I was running out of money. I got hit by a drunk driver and my car got destroyed.
Wow.
And then I had a friend of mine who was an ex-girlfriend who I was very close to. She was dying of AIDS. So I spent that whole time with her up until when she passed. 2 weeks after she passed, that's when I got up the courage to say, I'm leaving, I'm changing my life, and I'm going to Hollywood. And so it was that whole year tested me whether I was going to give up on my dream and just kind of go back and try and survive again, or whether I was going to take that risk and jump off the cliff and hopefully fly before I hit the ground. And I made that choice to take a leap of faith, and that's what I did.
So I take it that your experience with your good friend, often when we lose people, we change our lives and want to live life for both people, for ourselves and the person that passed that was close to you. So you've loved life, and if she's upstairs, she's smiling because you're a success in Hollywood, and you're doing good.
Well, my whole life has been one of doors opening. I go through and I kind of recreate myself, and I didn't have a plan for it. I didn't know it was going to happen that way. I didn't know I was going to work in Hollywood and be a producer, none of these things. But when I came to Hollywood after her passing, I ended up, once again, a door opened. I ended up writing and doing a one-man performance called Goodbye, My Friend, at a theater in Hollywood about losing her and about her story. And then I was working as a counselor with runaway kids, and I performed that piece. And I tell you, that was the most powerful thing, because all these kids were crying, I'm crying, and they all came up and they were like, we want to go home, we want to go to school, we want to get off the streets, all because I shared her story about how she impacted me as she was dying of AIDS. So I didn't expect to do that. It wasn't my plan. It was just, I just had to step to it and do it because it was there. And I needed to, share that story with others to inspire them, to not give up.
Is that on film?
Well, they filmed me. I have a 10-minute piece of me performing it for the kids at the runaway shelter in Hollywood. I do have that. And I just finished a second draft of a script called Goodbye, My Friend, that I'm going to turn into a movie within the next year or two based on that story. And then people are pressuring me to actually turn it into an actual one-man performance piece at a theater company in the Valley. So a lot is coming back out of it. I kind of put it away for many years, but it's kind of like come back again to me.
So that's great. I'd love to see it. So
I'll send it your way.
Yeah, and you have a few future film projects. Goodbye, My Friend. They call me Termite.
Yeah, that's a true story. We've been working on that for years. That's a true story of a boxer.
Yes.
Yeah, he fought for the championship, welterweight championship again when Muhammad Ali. They won a dual card when Muhammad Ali had his last fight, the last hurrah in Vegas, and he fought and he lost a 15-round contested decision. His life crashed, got into drugs, turned his life back around, and ended up being asked to come to Iraq to kill bugs during the war because his dad was a pest exterminator. He went over there and he ended up being given a mission of training the Iraqi kids and taking them to the 2004 Olympics, which he did. and not get killed by Al Qaeda. And it's a real powerful story. So yeah, that's another one that we, are planning to make.
That's a really good story. Tell me about the Yap documentary. What is it that?
Well, once again, back to what I'd said, life just keeps giving me opportunities, just like meeting you, just like, all the people I get that get put in my life. I said, God didn't give me a lot of money, but he blessed me with a lot of great friends. So I think I prefer great friends. I wouldn't mind a little more money too, but hey, that's not as important as the great friends when you really look at it. So the Yap story is this guy who's became a friend of mine. He grew up in this island of Yap, which is 15,000 people in the middle of Micronesia. So it's a little tiny place that most people don't even know exists. He went on to be in the army. He fought in Iraq. A helicopter got shot down. He saved a bunch of his buddies' lives in Iraq under fire. Broke his back, got congressional medals from the president. And we worked together on a movie that I directed, The Flag, and we became close brothers. And so he's now working in Yap in the government, and he wanted me to come over to help them do a documentary about the history of their country. So that took me on another adventure. A kid from the South Bronx hanging out in a place that who the hell knew existed, Yap. So it's been wild, man. It's been wild.
Really. So tell me about your podcast, Live Courageously. You have 70 episodes, a website, merchandise, newsletter. How did that come to be?
Yeah, once again, the same story, man. I was up in Canada doing a movie, Left Behind, with Kevin Sorbo during COVID, and I woke up at 2:00 in the morning, and just this thing came to me. It was like, everybody's like being afraid, and you need to push out a message of courage. And all these people, and they're all courageous. Some of them are ex-military, ex-police, just a whole range of creative people, you name it. And I was like, okay, yeah, maybe I should. And so, I got the idea then, and I started it only thinking I was going to do a couple of episodes. And, I didn't have a plan. It wasn't my plan. It just came to me, and I followed what came to me. And then it started to grow and grow. And I was like, well, God, I got 150 great friends that I can put on the show. How do I decide? So it just kept, now I'm up to 70 plus, going about to hit 75.
Wow.
And I got at least another 75 people and I keep meeting, like I met 4 people in Yap for the show. I met 2 yesterday. It just keeps growing. And I'm like, how did this happen? But it's the same way my whole life. I just follow the instincts, man. And it takes me with, and then I started doing the newsletter to follow it up. And then a group of people started supporting me, a great team. And they started saying, we want to help you. We want to do a website for you. So all of them just threw in and volunteered and helped create the next level for me. They said, because we want to share your message. So I got this great team of people, all of them donating their time to help me share this message, which is mind-boggling.
Yes, I'm want to turn my brother on to Live Courageously because he's scared of everything these days.
I hear you.
That's him, so
yes. But it's a great message, which I did not, like I said, it wasn't something that was ever planned. I never thought I'd be doing podcast shows. I never thought I'd be doing a newsletter. I never thought I'd have a website. None of that was like a plan. It was just the door opened. I went through, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. So, I just follow the instincts, and I go where it takes me.
But I imagine, you're known for lifting your fellow man. And was it childhood, your mother instilled that in you? How did because you have a tumultuous childhood in the beginning. And when did you make your mission in life to help people?
That's a great question, Kelsey. I think part of it was I was blessed with my mother was and both my father, but like I said, my father died when I was 4, and then we were left to survive on 2 checks: a Social Security check and an Army veterans check. That's all the money we had. So we were one of the poorer families in the neighborhood because my mother didn't work at that point. She was raising 2 kids.
Yeah.
And she had a 3rd grade education. When she came to America, she was a domestic servant, and then she worked in factories during the war. So she didn't have a lot, but she was just such a loving woman, and she had a faith, and all the kids in the neighborhood, they'd come over and she'd cook for them and she'd give them and she'd take care of them. So she kind of like loved on all these, all my friends, and they all loved her. And so I guess, if I had to say what gave me that impetus to care about others, it was my mother, because my mother cared about everybody, and then it kind of managed itself into different ways in life. And when I quit high school at the age of 15, that's when I started like really reading and learning. And I was in a neighborhood where my friends were doing heroin, there was crime, there was drugs, everything. And I didn't get into that, but I always wanted to help people get out of that because I didn't think that was a good thing for people. It was like, you're ruining your life, man. Why don't you like stop that shit? So that's how it kind of took. And then I went through many areas to get to where I am today. But it was I always had that impulse that I wanted to make things better, not only for myself, but for everybody around me, all my friends.
Did you have success rate in doing that with your friends, or some of them didn't make it?
Well, some didn't make it. Drugs is a horrible thing. Some did. Some got into rehab. Some got out of drugs. I remember a night we spent with getting a guy detox. We, stayed with him all night as he was going through his withdrawals. And I was in my teens, and we were in the middle of the South Bronx, and at this office that we had, because we were like organizing against drugs. That was the first thing I got into. I got into a group that was all ex-drug addicts who were organizing against drugs.
Really?
The only non-drug addict, because I never did heroin or I never did coke at that time or anything like that. But so I joined them because that was like, oh wow, this is a great mission. I want to be part of it. So I became one of the leaders in the group and helping them. And I was a teenager, but I became a leader doing that.
Really? And you said you have a sibling. I don't know if it's a brother or sister.
Yeah, he's my brother. He's 3.5 years older than me. He lives in New Jersey, and he has a family. We're tight. We went through all that brother stuff when we were kids. Like we were fighting. The great thing was me and him used to fight all the time. So everybody looked at us as the crazy Irish kids. So nobody else would get into fights with us. So I didn't have to fight anybody but my brother. So it kind of worked out pretty good.
Yeah, that's a good strategy. I fought with my brother, and I didn't have that luck.
I lucked up because people were like, these two, because we were like the only white kids in the neighborhood, right? So they're like, these 2 white kids are crazy, man. So they didn't mess with us, which was fine, because then we just made friends with everybody.
Fantastic. So I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about stroke, because I came up with this podcast to highlight, to address strokes, and I've been surprised at how many people had strokes, know someone that had stroke, and um, we're going to delve first in the future with mitigating and addressing the medical advancements for strokes. But have strokes ever touched your life?
Yeah, I have a dear friend of mine, a Puerto Rican guy who grew up in East Harlem in New York, and we were involved in a lot of stuff over the years together and just friends. And I don't know how many years ago now. I'm going to guess it was 10 years. He had a stroke. He was living up in Northern California with his wife.
Did I meet him?
What's that?
I met one of your friends.
No, you didn't. That was also a Puerto Rican friend from the South Bronx. He's down in Florida. Yeah, you met Carmelo, a great guy. Yeah, he always asked about you. But this friend of mine, so he was in the hospital, and his wife was working. And so when he came out of the hospital, me and another friend of his we went up to Northern California and we stayed with him for a week to take care of him, to kind of take him out, to kind of like lift up his spirits, just mess with him, tell jokes, just give him a lot of crap so that, he could kind of start that healing process to get back. And now, he's in Puerto Rico and with his wife, and he's, still going strong. And
He's recovered.
not a full recovery. No, I think that's the hard battle that you're going.
He sounds drunk like me.
Yeah, he's, it may be even a little worse. I mean, it's just,
sorry.
he's had a hard time. But he's recovered on a lot of areas of it. And, so he's happy, and he's, doing good compared. So, he turned the situation into a positive, like you talk about.
Yeah.
And your journey is, if you want to talk about live courageously, dealing with what you dealt with and doing what you're doing, I think sums it all up. I mean, that's how to deal with life, is be courageous and take whatever's thrown at you and turn it around. So
yes.
You're doing that.
Thank you. I was going to ask you, because you heard me when I got out of rehab a few months, a year ago. And how am I doing?
Oh man, so much better, because, I mean, obviously, I know you for so long, and I know you pre-stroke. And, so when I first heard you, when you had the stroke and you were on the phone, it was scary. I mean, obviously it was probably scarier for you than it was for me, but just hearing you was like, it was painful to hear, because I knew you were struggling so hard. And then you started to put in the work, and we got a chance to hang out a couple of times. And I saw the process as you kept making strides to make it better each time. Now it's just, I mean, night and day compared to how you were on that first phone call.
Yeah. Thank you. But I still have a ways to go. And I'm going to go back to speech therapy. My goal is to be, I think I've 90% recovered. I want a 95, 98 with my thinking and speech. So stay tuned.
Yes, we will stay tuned. But once again, and I think this, I mean, part of why I think, in my opinion, you've kind of got so far is because you have that attitude. We call it, I call it in my world, the mindset, and you just kind of got that unstoppable mindset. It's part of who you are. So, rather than giving up, because sometimes that's the thing, it's easy for people to give up in a situation like that and just feel like they can't do anything about it. But you didn't give up. No. You just became more unstoppable. And now you keep setting the goal. Well, I hit 90. Now I want to hit 95, 98. Well, that's the way to do it, man.
Speaking of not giving up, I had a chat with my sister lately, because God forbid I have another stroke. I was in a coma for 2 months, and they dissolved my business. The lawyers got involved, etc. And I said to my sister, God forbid I have another stroke, but give me a month before you pull the plug, because I'm a fighter.
Well, I remember, you may remember me being in Marina Del Rey with you when you were going through that. I don't know if you remember that, but, your attitude was, and at the hospital downtown, I visited you downtown at the hospital in LA, and you had that same attitude. I remember me driving you, and you were telling me that, you're that same kind of attitude to not give up, man. So that's what it takes,
Yes.
It takes.
All I remember about that time is you saving me and climbing over my balcony because I couldn't get to the door.
Right. And the funny part of it was I climbed over the balcony, got inside, and I called 911. And the first thing you said, which I'll never forget, you were like laying there, and you're like, having a stroke, whatever, and then 911's coming, and you're telling me, tell them not to put the sirens on. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, you got bigger things to worry than the sirens, man.
Yeah.
But it was a moment, man. Scared the hell out of me.
Yeah, well, thank goodness you were there. And
I was glad that I got my text message and I was able to rush over.
Yeah, thank you. So, thank you for being here, and I I I want the uh, pursue this podcast, stroke victims, and anyone that's doing good. So that's all for today. But
Well,
yeah,
thank you for being part of the show. I, wish you the best with your improvement, and also with this podcast show. And I think it'll be a message to people that will inspire others. So I'm 100% behind you. And once again, thank you for having me part of your show.
great, John. Thank you. And thank you for joining us, and look forward to more episodes of Stroke of Genius podcast. And please subscribe. That's all for now. Thank you.